Hello and welcome to Classic. I'm Felix,
And I'm Greg.
and welcome to we're back where it all began, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We're back in the Kaiser Classic showroom where I work, which
Yeah.
is really nice. Partly because we are able to sit in front of this magnificent machine behind us, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more. But yeah, it's good to be back here. What have you been up to lately?
Well, I've been riding my bike
Yes.
quite a lot. Had my first ever track day.
How was that?
It was excellent, and I realised that I need to buy, want to buy a new motorcycle because
Yeah, that's the problem with track days, isn't it?
Yeah, I was starting to scrape the foot pegs, and
Yeah.
I need something a bit sportier.
Yeah.
Also I watched a video of on the Rolls-Royce Camargue that we discussed in the EV conversion episode.
Yeah.
And that sort of made me appreciate the design a bit more.
Yeah.
We'll probably put a link to that video. It's Ian Tyrrell's channel of Tyrrell Classics. He
did some great content.
Yeah, he made it a really nice piece on that. And also I managed to get my wife to drive the 911.
That's a big moment.
Yeah, especially for her. She's
Yeah.
had sort of a standing invitation to drive it ever since I bought it.
That's like 13 years.
Yeah, and she thought she hasn't dared to do it. And then she wanted to use it for a short music video for a song that she recorded with her old band. So we went out and she drove it, and she actually enjoyed it. She sort of got the idea of why I love driving so much.
Yeah, and why?
Because she's not into cars at all.
Yeah.
So.
I need to get my wife hasn't driven mine yet, so I need to make that happen.
Yeah, it may take 12 years though.
Yeah, I'll keep hoping.
You're gonna have to keep the car for 12 years.
Yeah, that's probably more problematic. Yeah. Getting it to drive.
What have you done lately?
I've been driving my car quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just busy with work. We've had a few sales, international sales, which is good. So yeah, it feels like the market's picking up again for summer, which is really good. Just been driving a lot of different cars. Was driving a Cobra this morning, which was really fun. Drove an R107 recently, which is what we'll be talking about today. What else have I spent time behind the wheel of? My 911. Yeah, so it's been good. Just lots of different things.
Lots of driving.
Which is always good.
Yeah.
So today, as I just mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Mercedes R107.
As seen here.
As seen right behind us. And it's not like I've always lent more towards sportier cars, stuff that handles well, stuff that you can use on a track or chuck down a twisty road. Generally, if it's not good for that, it doesn't really appeal to me. But I drove one of these probably like a year and a half ago, and had a really good session in it. Took it for a whole weekend, and just really enjoyed it. So it's kind of opened my mind up to these cars, and to the point that I really like them. I almost have one. So as I say, it's not a car I would normally be too interested in, but having got behind the wheel, I think it's like anything. Until you've tried something, you don't really know.
And it's probably an age thing as well.
Definitely,
we're getting old.
We're getting pretty old. So
we want something
soft GT cars that are like
comfy seats,
and soft suspension and sidewalls. Having some sidewall on the tyres.
Sidewalls for days.
Appealing to a man and a woman of a certain age.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it as well. But I'm definitely appreciating this stuff more. And actually, I just sold one of these the other day to a guy who was like 21, 22. So,
really?
I think he saw the appeal of having it as like a summer car to cruise around in. So that was a really cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose that answers the question why we picked this car.
Yeah, and as I say, for me, it's it's a car that typically wouldn't appeal to me, but having driven them, I just think they're just a different kind of motoring. If you're just into sports cars and going fast, like they're so they're much happier at a more relaxed pace, and there's a time in it, like on the right kind of road in the right weather, when it's sunny and you've got the roof down. There is almost no other car I'd rather be in, even more than any kind of sports car. When it's the right, if you're in the right frame of mind, it's all about. I think it's obviously with any car, but it's having the right car for like the frame of mind that you're in, the kind of road, the weather. And I've had a few drives in these where those things have kind of come together, and it's just been magic. And I've just thought like there's literally no other car I'd rather be in, which is cool.
Yeah, and it's the same for me, because for me the R107 sort of, what it represents, that sort of 70s jet set lifestyle.
Yeah.
I see an R107 and I just want to get in it and drive down to the south of France for the weekend.
Completely, yeah.
And it's and I think also the R107 is probably one of the few classic / vintage Grand Tourers that can still be had for not a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And,
the prices. So the white one I sold the other week was 15,500 euros.
Yeah.
Which is so much car for the money. And as we'll get into later, like they're solid cars.
And compare that to the Pagoda. That was about 10 or 15 years ago was sort of the same money, but now they're insane value.
Yeah, you're looking. A cheap Pagoda is about 80,000 euros.
Yeah.
A good one, 110 to 120,000.
Mm.
And then even more so for something like a 190, which we've got a couple of those in stock as well, and they are another level on in terms of beauty and really pretty cars. But yeah, there's something about the R107, like you're getting that Mercedes, you're getting such a quality car and a desirable car, but for like a fraction of the price of a Pagoda. And I think you can, we'll show a few pictures later, but I've seen a few people do things with wheels and lowering, and I think you can make them look properly nice, like really good looking cars with not much work. So I think they're not as pretty as a Pagoda, and like definitely nowhere, if you put it next to like a 190, like it's a totally different kind of car. But there's something in they're very like tank-like and solid in how they're built, and they're quite squarish. The square lines, as you can see behind us, kind of allude to that. It looks like a heavy, solid bit of engineering, and it really is.
Yeah, but it still retains some of that coolness that I feel that later SLs perhaps have lost a bit, because they're from an era where Mercedes didn't have to really compete with anyone, because they knew that they built their cars to this sort of top quality standards, and they didn't have to fit all the latest tech in them. Having said that, we'll be getting into what they actually fitted the SLs with later on, but I think there's something to say about that. There's this, dare I say, a big dick energy about them. And also, like you said, they're built like tanks. In fact, that they were nicknamed der Panzerwagen during the development stages, because they actually, by the factory, because they built them to that sort of level of sturdiness. And
you can see by I took the white one that we sold recently. Took that for a weekend, as I said, and it had been sat for a number of months, a significant number of months over winter, and I got in it at like Easter time and just fired it up and drove 2 hours, which like normally in a classic car is a pretty brave to do and thing to do. So there's something, they're just very robust and well put together, which is like as kind of a carefree, obviously like with any classic you've got to keep an eye on things and maintain it, but they are slightly less hands-off than something like a British or Italian like summer roadster. You can yeah, you can stick these in the garage and come back to them and know that they're going to be pretty confident they're going to start and get you where you want to go.
And they're probably even more reliable than, say, a later R129.
Yeah.
Which is still a brilliant car quality-wise, but it's still got so much electronics that can go wrong. So yeah, I think it's probably a sweet spot for Mercedes build.
Yeah, I've heard that numerous times actually. I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Should we just briefly touch on the history of the car?
Yeah, so production started in 1971. So am I correct that it was one of the longest production runs of any Mercedes, which is something in itself.
Yeah,
when was it, 88?
89 was the last year.
89, yeah, 71 to 89. That's insane, like by modern standards.
It's pretty much the same as the Porsche 928.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I think I'm right in saying that the 928 actually developed, it changed more over the years than the R107 did.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And what that also means is the production numbers are really, really high. I think the total numbers produced were 237,287 roadsters, and the SLCs, the coupes, was 62,888. So that's not great from an investment. Like, you're not going to see crazy numbers. It's not like a rare collectible car in that sense, but it does mean there's so much choice on the market. You're really spoiled for choice with these. And there's also which we'll get into later, but there's a couple of companies that are specialists, like the SL shop in the UK is one company that are really supporting these cars. There's a good aftermarket scene for parts, and
they have a great website as well. I used the website when we were doing research.
So there's a really big community because they're so abundant and popular, and there's so many out there. They're really well supported in the aftermarket and community, which is a good thing. So as I say, it's not like a collector investment car, although some of them, like the 560s, are certainly appreciating significantly. But it means you're buying into something where you've got lots of aftermarket support and parts available, and also companies that are building, so we had a Brabus Classic one here that was literally like it had just left. It was like it had just come out of a Mercedes showroom. It was insane. And then, as I said, like SL Shop, and there's a few other companies that specialise in restoring these cars. So a bit like with 911s, where you're spoiled for choice. With certain marks, like if you wanted to buy like a restored or a pristine car, there's not many companies who have the expertise to do it. Whereas with these R107s, there's so many companies out there that whatever country you're in, you can probably find somewhere that.
And they are quite simple cars to work on as well.
Yeah.
So they're not that finicky, and we'll get into that. But the engines are really robust as well. So
yeah. There's quite a lot of engines available for these. So I've only driven V8s. But there were a couple of.
There were a couple of 6-cylinders.
Yeah.
Mainly the 280 and later on the 300. And from what I've heard, the 300 is actually the better driver's car.
Really?
Because the engine is a bit lighter, and also the 300 came later on in the R107's life. So by the mid-80s, Mercedes actually improved on the. They improved on the handling. They stiffened it up, the suspension a bit.
Yeah.
Still maintaining a sort of a GT style driving experience, but it was just that little bit better steering feel wise. I should say that I have actually never driven one, but I've ridden in one.
Yeah.
And I felt that actually sort of gave me, just being in the passenger seat actually gave me a feel of what it was like to drive, because it was really relaxing. It wasn't, like you said as well, it was just a wafter. Yeah,
you just kind of float along the road, and I think as you say, even from the passenger seat, you can get a good feel for these cars. But yeah, the engine thing is interesting, and it's the same with a lot of, particularly on these cars. I think a lot of people get obsessed with from a collectability point of view partly, but the 560s are like seen often as the car to have.
But that was only sold in the US when you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because we had here in Europe, we had the 5 litre. That was first called, ironically, the 450 5.0.
Yeah.
Then it was rebadged the 500, which was an all aluminium V8.
Yeah.
And we'll get on to why that is particularly interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, like we've hadn't sold a few of these SLs, and as I say, like people kind of get a bit caught up on getting the biggest engine and the 560, and for
the 500 was actually more powerful.
Oh really? So, but for me, like the engine size is completely irrelevant if you're going to buy one of these cars, because the type of car for me and how I've driven the car and how I've enjoyed it and experienced it, the engine was completely irrelevant to that enjoyment. It's a proper cruiser, and any of those engines will pull you along at a pace that you'll be happy kind of wafting along on the back roads where the car was happiest for me actually, because the problem is once you get onto a motorway with the wind noise when you've got the roof down, it's like any convertible is pretty horrendous. It's when you get down to lower speeds, kind of like 50 miles an hour, sort of 60, 70 kilometers an hour on a back road, and you're just cruising along and that wind noise has dropped. And at that speed, again, I keep using the word cruising, but just cruising, the engine size doesn't matter. So you can end up spending a lot more money and spending a lot more time trying to find a bigger engine. But in my opinion, a 350 or a 450 or one of the smaller, even some of the 6-cylinder cars, like I don't think it's not a sports car where the power counts for something, where you're trying to where that soundtrack is a big part of it, and that power from the engine, whether you're taking it on track or blasting it down a B road, like when you're doing that, the power counts. But in this car, like power for me doesn't count for anything as that experience.
And they're really heavy as well.
Yeah,
they were 350 kilos heavier than the Pagoda.
Yeah, so I don't understand the power and the bigger engine thing. I would get any size engine, just buy it based on the condition, the colour. Get the car you want, and don't worry so much about.
Speaking of colours, do you know how many different colours you could choose from the SL throughout its life?
How many colours? Usually there's not many on a...
No, 97.
That's quite a lot of colours.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I suppose that they sort of overlap, but imagine having to spec one from new.
97 different colours.
Yeah, I want a beige one. Yeah, okay, so do you want this one, this one that's slightly lighter?
That's
slightly
ridiculous.
Brown. Yeah, it's...
We'll flash some of those up, but you mentioned a couple that were interesting. So citrus green, cypress green. This is the one that I really like, which is quite rare, which is light. I think it's called light green metallic.
Okay.
Or light green. It's
it's very pretty.
It's a cool
really
colour.
Suits the car.
Yeah, and we had a dark blue. I don't know what the actual colour is called, but like a navy blue Brabus Classic car, and just super elegant. I think they almost work with any. I mean, for me, as I've talked about before with car colours, but like silver and black I find really uninteresting now. But these cars, they tend to work in most colours. I think like because of that. You were talking about that kind of coolness in that 70s. I think the kind of brighter colours work, or the more interesting colours work really well. They just look a bit classy and different. But almost any colour. We had a white one, as I said, the one that we sold recently to that young guy was white, and that again worked really nicely.
Probably one of 5 different whites that could be had.
Jesus, that's a job in itself. But so there's some really cool. So you were saying like citrus green, cypress green, Havana brown, manganese brown. Manganese brown.
Because I've always felt more drawn to the early cars, really regardless of what car we're talking about. But so I feel that if I was to have an SL or an R107, I'd especially an early one, I'd like it to have sort of one of those earthy 70s colours, or some dark cool. Brown or dark green. Especially with the chrome, I think it goes really well.
Yeah, you get that nice accent of the chrome. What about special editions? Have they done any? Because I've only dealt with standard.
Yeah, because I don't. I've tried to research this, but I couldn't really find that there were any special editions to begin with. And again, going back to the ethos of the car, I think,
Yeah.
or rather, what type of brand Mercedes was
Yeah.
at the time. I don't think that they felt the need to sort of launch any special editions because
Yeah.
the car in itself was they felt that it was good enough. But having said that, that AMG actually built 3 of these that used the 6-liter V8 from the AMG Hammer.
I feel like I've seen a picture of this car and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I know, like I was saying about it not being a sports car and not caring about engine size, but when you see the picture of it, we'll put one up, but
Yeah,
it looks bad. Like the stance and the wheels are just,
Michael
insane.
Schumacher had one.
yeah.
He may have. I've yet to have this confirmed, but he may have been involved in commissioning AMG to build it from
That's so
the
cool.
start. But there seems to be some debate as to whether that's true or not.
But he certainly owned one, and it's
Yeah.
a fucking cool looking car, and it kind of shows the potential. If you want to start putting wheels and stuff on and
Yeah.
kind of getting the
Yeah, it
stance
looks
a bit more dialed in, it
Yeah,
looks
proper
badass.
badass.
Yeah, it's got so much presence.
And that's a nice segue into going from Schumacher to racing
yeah.
heritage, because I didn't really know
No,
that
yeah.
the Mercedes actually
I
took
would
this.
never have associated
No.
this with any.
But there's actually a quite interesting backstory to this, because Mercedes had actually pulled from all racing in 1955 following the crash at Le Mans, where the 300 SLR crashed into the crowd, and actually the actual bodywork of the car caught fire because it was made of a really high magnesium content alloy. And when magnesium burns, when it reaches that
Yeah.
temperature, it burns like a sort of a
Super intense.
really. So I think 83 people, 83
That's
spectators
so
actually were
savage.
killed. So following that, Mercedes pulled from racing altogether until 1977, when an employee of Mercedes in the UK took the 450 SL that was used as a press car and started rallying it. And Mercedes sort of picked up on this and started using the 450, or rather the 450 SLC 5-litre for endurance rallying, which was there's a really Johnny Smith made a really interesting video on that very car, the car that started it all.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the description.
Because the SLC for sure.
It's a probably big car.
Yeah, and they. I know of a few. There's been a few race replicas, and I have a client who's building one with a C63 engine in, which is going to be pretty insane. So that people have done some ridiculous racing versions of the SLC, but the SL, I haven't seen many sporting SLs.
I don't think they were. Well, the Mercedes. Mercedes never used it to go racing the SL, but the SLC. And interestingly, the SLC rally car still had the 3-speed auto gearbox.
Yeah, that's so great.
And later on, when Mercedes started entering the SLC 5-litre, or it was probably called the SLC 500.
Yeah.
Or the 500 SLC. They started. They went touring car racing with it.
Yeah.
And for homologation reasons, they still had to use the 3-speed auto.
Oh my god, that's so crazy.
Yeah, and so they didn't do really all that well. They managed to get one win in the 1980 Nürburgring 6 hours.
But infuriating.
Yeah. Must be. But they've improved on the gearbox, so they used it as sort of a semi-automatic. They shifted manually through the gears, but still
those
3
have always
speeds.
historically worked really well.
Yeah.
It takes like a second to change it.
Yeah.
Compared to like a modern PDK. How about buying and owning? So one thing that's good with these cars, or any car typically with a V8, is they tend to be quite lazy, understressed, underpowered.
Oh, yeah.
That's why American cars have always made for great cruisers and generally quite reliable, because the power potential or the actual output of the power is generally a lot lower than the potential of the engine.
Yeah,
So they're very
I don't know,
understressed.
what's the output of 350? Is 200 horsepower?
Yeah, around the 200 mark.
Out of 3.5 litres.
Yeah. So you've still got plenty of power left in that engine, and they've left it there for good reason, because the car just cruises along happily, and as Felix said, it's just very understressed. And the big thing to look out for more is as you pointed out in the notes, is the rust. So they do, like any classic car of this age, it's not a major thing, but just look out for rust, particularly around the body. Wheel wells and sills and arches are really bad. Like I know we've seen a few where the arches, I mean, if you're buying an import car, the white one that we saw was a Texas car, so like it was such a solid shell. But if you're buying a European car, it's certainly something to look forward to. Look out for.
look forward to welding and doing metal work.
So much fun doing that, and it's such an affordable hobby.
Yeah.
Repairing rust.
But I feel like perhaps at least here in Sweden, the ordinary SL has probably been taken care of a bit better, or probably hasn't been used year round. So
well, they do have hard tops, which is a really good option on these cars. Yeah,
and later cars actually got them as standard.
Yeah, so a lot of the cars either come with hard tops or have had them at some point in their lives, so that makes them usable. So it's possible that they've been used for winter.
That's true.
And those hard tops are really, I think the cars look really nice.
Yeah. One of the few cars where the hard top actually improves on the looks.
Yeah, which is a really cool thing. So that makes it such a usable car. God, I really like these. I really do. Could you date it? Was it something? Yeah.
Would you want to? Probably not.
That's a good. It's so in traffic though. Like in traffic, it would be a pretty easy, pretty nice car to drive. They're so because automatic, lazy. High torque V8, like they're pretty nice to drive in traffic. Yeah, you probably in the summer I think you could daily drive. When the sun's out, you could happily daily it. I don't know if I'd want to. Any classic in the winter is just I wouldn't want to daily drive, not because of the damage to the car necessarily, which is obviously something you have to consider, but less that, but more just the levels of refinement and lack of like poor seal on the windows. Condensation, poor heating, fuck daily driving a classic car. But in the winter, in the summer though, I think these are definitely one of the cars that I think you'd be very happy.
Yeah, because I mean there are, I necessarily wouldn't want to daily a classic. Actually, when I bought my 94, that later became your 94. Plug for a previous episode. I had the intention of actually sort of using it as a semi-daily during the summer, but that never came through because
you have a Volvo V60.
It's a lot better in theory than it is.
Seems like a really fun idea.
And it really isn't.
Yeah, when you've got a nice daily, like it just. You're always going to help in that. Values, as we talked about earlier, so 15,000 euros will. I mean, I've seen them go for less. 13,000, 14,000, but it's so much car for the money. Like in terms of value, I really think if you want a good, it's not a sports car. That's the only thing I'm going to say, and I don't think it ever will be. I don't know what people have done with suspension and stuff. Maybe it's possible, but
it probably cost way too much to turn it into a semi-sports car.
It's just not that kind of car. No. If you drive one of these cars, it kind of tells you what it wants to be, and it's happier sat at 60, 70 kilometers on a kind of rolling, gently winding sunny back road. It's so happy there. That's what it wants to do. And
Yeah. It's just a nice place to be.
such a nice place to be. Genuinely, when those are the conditions, there is no other car you would rather.
It's like a nice, it's like a comfortable pair of slippers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Like
they just work.
Yeah, it's just super comfy and cruisy. So yeah.
US, we should say that US cars here in Europe are probably a bit less desirable, considering they had the fugly.
That is a huge point that I completely overlooked. Yeah, so import cars have these kind of twin headlight design,
seal beam headlights,
which are horrible, and then
bench
massive impact. Yeah, you literally could sit on them and tie your shoelaces. They're that big, and that's a really unfortunate thing with import cars. It's something you can negotiate on if a car has got that, because it's going to cost you a couple of €1,000.
Yeah, because I don't think that. The lights, and I think that in order to fit Euro bumpers on a US car, you actually have to make some changes to the bodywork itself. Yeah. In order to fit them.
So it's not a cheap thing to do. This is a European car. We had a US car which had Euro lights, but had US bumpers that we were planning on changing, but then it sold. But it's just. They are really bad. Some people really like them though, bizarrely. I don't understand how they just to me I almost felt driving the car with the big bumpers on. People were like, "Oh, that's a nice Mercedes," and I was like, I just felt like the car looks so much better. It's like it's okay, but like you should see that when they have the correct bumpers on.
Yeah.
But the guy who bought the white one actually, I was saying to him, "You've got to change them," and he was like, "No, I kind of like them," which is fair enough. It would save him a bit of money. But for me, like they really ruin a potentially very good looking car. Would you buy one?
Yes.
It's a big question. Yeah, I 100% would.
Yeah.
I almost considered with the white one, the price that we had the white one for, as I said, it was like €15,000, and like, just so much car for the money.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately we're of that age where I don't know if we're biased by that, but like that kind of car is becoming really appealing. Especially like if you had I don't know if I could have it as my only car, but to go alongside a 911 or like something like a Miata or something, or a 924 that you can chuck around a bit more. Like to cruise out if you're going out for a weekend away, or if you're taking your wife, like who doesn't want something that's riding really harsh and low and sporty and loud. Generally,
it's just elegant motoring.
Yeah, just so nice. It's such a civilized way of traveling. And they genuinely, as I say, when you find that kind of happy place of 60, 70 kilometers an hour on a gently winding back road and the sun's out and the roof's down, like there's just such
effortless
a nice
driving,
effortless just cruises along. So yeah, I would definitely have one.
I would too, and I would love to have one to go alongside my 911, because I think they make
the contrast.
They make for quite an interesting couple, because they are, well, my car being an 82 and the SL being of similar vintage, to have those two side by side in the garage, and also because I don't think that anyone back in the day would have actually chosen between an SL and a 911, but they were sort of competing, at least price wise and quality wise as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have one as well, but as I've realized, I don't have the time nor the money to actually keep two classic cars going at the same time.
Not an easy task, but for sure. I think you're right. Like I don't know. I just think as a pairing, having something sporty, or but even if it's your own car, if you're not into track days or driving fast, or having a sports car as a usable classic for the summer, definitely one of the best value, solid and good investment as well. Like they're creeping up in value.
What would your dream spec be? Would it be a later car or an
I love
car?
This one of the ones that we've had.
This is a 1971?
Yes, it's an early one.
Really early.
Really early. And the thing I love with this is the interior, which some people really hate, and I can understand why. But green, light green, and then over a green interior, it's just so mad. It's so 70s. Like you wouldn't get that on a modern. That's what I like about a lot of classic stuff, is you just don't see that kind of the color combinations on modern cars, because no one would be mental enough to spec it. But
that's maybe a topic for another podcast. But I feel like the sort of lairier colors are coming back in fashion.
Yeah, they are for sure. Like with paint to sample, and
and even on sort
reason.
of standard cars, you can actually spec them out,
which is really cool.
now.
And I think there's an appetite for that again. And I think it just goes to show like how spot on they were. But this I actually weirdly, and this isn't a crazy price. I think we've got this on for like 19,500 euros. So like it's not. I would almost buy it if I had the money. I think because the color, it's got a matching green hardtop as well. So with the hardtop on, I don't know. I just love the color of this. I think it's the dark green interior. I just think it's really cool. It's a bit Marmite, but some people love it. But
I'd go down the same route.
Yeah.
I'd also like an early car.
The Brabus saying that the Brabus Classic car we had was a later car, US car, and had gone through like if you had a dream spec, you would buy a Brabus. They only made a short run of them because I think they weren't economically viable, because compared to a Pagoda or a 190, which Brabus Classic still sells. There's a much more margin in those cars, whereas I don't think the numbers worked on these. So they did a short run of these cars, and if you can get a hold of one, you're getting a car. I'm pretty sure they would have made a loss on. We saw the invoice price on the one that I think it was like 170,000 or something, maybe less than that. I can't remember how much it was, but it was not much margin. And they were literally dipping the shells and respraying them, correcting any flaws. So. For me, if you could get a Brabus Classic or an SL shop, with those guys put out some really lovely cars, that would be the way to do it.
I'd love sort of like I said, a dark green or a dark brown one with a sort of tan. I'd actually prefer the MB Tex upholstery, the faux leather, just because it's so incredibly durable and hard wearing, and it goes with the overall ethos of the car being incredibly durable and hard wearing. And I'm not I would probably regret that every hot summer's day when I got into that sort of vinyl seats.
It's not good.
But still, it's a nice thing to have, and especially with the factory steel wheels with those hubcaps, with the color-coded hubcaps. I love those.
Yeah, those are quite cool. There's a few wheel combinations. There's a guy in Japan that I follow that's done something. I think he's widened a set of standard wheels. They're 17s, I think, he's running with more low-profile tyre, and he's lowered the car. And actually, his car, I would buy. That would be my dream car. I would put a picture up of his. I think it's absolutely in typical Japanese style. Like they have such an eye for designing cars, and it's just so beautifully modified. So that would be my car. Have you got anything to add, or I don't know what we're doing for the next? Hopefully this has been enjoyable. We haven't actually. We'll discuss this afterwards.
Yeah,
we haven't picked a next episode, but stay tuned. It will be something classic.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a leave a comment and turn on notifications and
you've got all of them. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and look forward to the next episode, which we don't know what it will be yet, but it will be
where we will be.
Where we will be. It's
we might be in my garage.
We could be. More on that later. Our studio, which is exciting. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.
Bye.